Okay, good morning, everybody. Want to welcome you to the December 16th meeting of the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board. We'll call the meeting to order at 8:06. I appreciate everybody's patience this morning as we get ramped up here. And let's conduct the roll call. Dr. Way.
Here.
Good morning. Representative Will.
Present.
Hello.
Good morning.
Representative Benavides.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Council Member Joseph.
Good morning, President. I'm only here for the first 30 minutes of this meeting. Sorry.
Good morning. Thank you. Commissioner Chimino.
Present.
Morning. Director Redhorst.
Good morning, here.
Dr. Limerick.
Present.
Director Barry.
Here.
Morning. Mr. Benitez.
Here.
Good morning. Miss Nelson. Don't see Miss Nelson. Do you, Johnny? No. Okay. Wait and see. Dr. Gonzalez. Do not see Dr. Gonzalez.
Here. I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, perfect. Good morning.
Good morning.
Tim Mock is here. Director Garcia.
Yes, Jim, present.
Good morning. And Director Wolf.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Representative Exum.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so we are shy right now, just one board member. I appreciate everybody joining us. Next, we are going to, let's take up agenda item 3, review, approve the December agenda. We are actually going to, I recommend that we amend the agenda to add a new agenda item 6 for an update with Ms. Runyon from the U.S. Board of Geographic Names to discuss the secretarial orders that recently came out and how those might affect us. Are there any other additions or edits or questions about the agenda this morning? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move to accept.
Okay, is there a second?
Sure. Second.
Great, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, agenda item 4, review, approve the November summary. And that was in our packets here. Do we have any questions or comments about the meeting summary from the November meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. All right, next, agenda item 5, board member updates and announcements. I just, I'm certain you all noticed via the news, at least, it was also in the update here this month, but the U.S. Board of Geographic Names did vote to approve Mount Mestahey to replace Squaw Mountain in Clear Creek County. So that one is official, and that they will be working on the changing the maps and signs and such that go along with that. We also just were informed this morning that we did receive, I believe this is the 6th proposal to rename Mount Evans. This is proposing it to rename it to Arapahoe Cheyenne Peak. And that concludes any additional updates that I may have. Do any other board members have any other updates? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to our new agenda item 6, an update from Ms. Runyon regarding the secretarial orders Ms. Runyon, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Tim. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Sorry, I was just typing a note in the chat there. Just to clarify there, Tim, that the email that just came in this morning, the individual, yes, is addressing the Mount Cheyenne Arapahoe proposal, but he's suggesting Healing Way Peak. So
Oh,
he's at,
I apologize. I missed that in the body of the email then. So, okay, so that is a proposal to actually is Healing Way Peak. I'm sorry. Thank you for the clarification.
sure. So that makes it the sixth name on the list. And yes, you say it came in 30 minutes ago into our Dropbox. So I just forwarded it to Tim and Johnny as an FYI, and I'll be acknowledging it with a copy of our proposal form that he's welcome to complete. But I will point out we already have 5 proposals pending. But you know, anyone's entitled to submit a name. So it'll be added to the list, making it now 6 options to rename Mount Evans. And I apologize, a moment ago I had to drop off, my connection cut me off, you all froze and I had to reconnect, so I missed Representative Benavidez's caught the very few words she said, asking for an update on the secretarial orders, and I'm happy to tell you what I know, which isn't everything, but
Yeah, and Ms. Runyon, let me just let Representative Benavidez restate her intentions for this conversation. Representative Benavidez.
Yes, and it was just that the Secretary Holland, I guess, issued some kind of order to your department with respect to any geographic features that use the word squaw in them. And I thought that her charge to you all, at least what was reported, was something like 90 days. And I don't know if that was to make recommendations for changes or to change them. And I know your process, as you've described it to us, is pretty long and entailed, and also includes coming to the states. So I'm just wondering what her order says with respect to that and how the state's input is included on it.
Yes, thank you, Representative Benavidez. Yes, there's a lot to it, and your last meeting was held the day before the orders were announced, and unfortunately, I knew they were coming, but I was sworn secrecy and was not allowed to reveal anything before the announcement. So I wish I could have shared it before now, but a lot has happened in the last month. There are 2 orders. So bear with me as I try and differentiate between the 2 because they are quite different in what they're trying to accomplish. Secretarial Order 3404, the first one, as you said, issued by Secretary Holland, who, as you know, is our first Native American Secretary of the Interior, and this is something that's very important to her. The first secretarial order will address simply the squaw names. And we have compiled at our website an inventory from the GNIS database, a spreadsheet, a list of all the squaw names listed currently in the nation. And there are somewhere around 660. And the order will establish a task force made up of about a dozen federal officials who I had heard were hoping to have their first meeting this week, but it hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it will now with the holidays fast approaching. Anyway, this task force will be given a list of what we're calling candidate replacements. Our database gurus have gone through the database and have located the 5 closest geographic features, named geographic features to the existing squaw name. So you have, for example, Squaw Mountain, the 5 closest geographic features, removing from that list anything that could itself be potentially offensive, and any name that could honor a person just because it's just, I hate to say it, but too risky these days. Essentially to develop the 5 closest geographic features. And the idea is that they will take the Squaw Mountain name, for example, and substitute the word for the first closest feature on that list. So if the nearest feature is, I don't know, Cottonwood Canyon, Squaw Mountain would become Cottonwood Mountain, just like that. As far as the timing, and if they determine that the first name on the list isn't suitable for whatever reason, they'll move to the second name on the list. So that could be Bear Mountain, or, I mean, whatever the nearest feature is. The idea is it's associated with the feature and the area, and the name's already in local use. Once they come up with a list of the replacement names for all 660 odd SQUA names on the master list, they will issue a Federal Register notice, which will give the public, the state names authorities, state agencies, federal agencies, 30 days to comment. So not much time, 30 days to comment on the replacement list. There will also be a 90-day period for tribal consultation, give tribes a chance to weigh in on the list. Once that 90 days have passed, they will present the final list to the USBGN at its next monthly meeting for presumably approval. So we're going to have a massive docket with 660 some names at one meeting to presumably approve at one fell swoop. What I don't know at this point is what that public comment period will entail. I'm assuming the Federal Register notice will provide a contact person of the task force who can weigh in on the names on the list. But what I don't know is if it allows the public, again, state agencies, federal agencies, even tribes for that matter, to offer a counter proposal. That's the unknown. Will it simply be a chance to comment, provide opinions? My understanding is that the task force will expect the BGN to approve those 660 replacement names at a meeting, and it probably will be late spring, summer, maybe early fall at the latest. And then if someone does not like the replacement name that was chosen and approved, then the opportunity will come up to submit a counter proposal to change it again to something else. So again, back to my example, you've got Squaw Mountain. The nearest feature is Cottonwood Canyon. On the replacement list, it would become Cottonwood Mountain. It'd be 30 days for public comments, 90 days for tribal consultation. The BGN will approve Cottonwood Mountain. And then if you don't like Cottonwood Mountain, you can propose something, you or anyone can propose something else to change that to maybe a name of native origin, maybe a name that's been selected by the community. But the idea here is the perception from the Secretary of the Interior and others is that there are far too many offensive names on the landscape. It's taken far too long to change them. So let's try this really radical new approach just with one swoop of a hand to change all 660 some SQUA names to something else in one fell swoop. Again, with the understanding, if you don't like that replacement, you can submit something else later. So that's the first secretarial order. I guess I should take a break. Any initial questions, reactions, thoughts? It's a bit of a, I know, a bit of a deer in headlights at the moment, right?
Representative Benavides.
I thought we had 5 or 6 in Colorado with that name. And so my question was, I don't think we do, but is there any proposals pending on any of those names? And if there were on the 600 plus, what would happen to those?
That's a very good question, Representative. That's something the staff is waiting to find out. One thing I'll add is that the BGN and its staff are sort of excluded from this whole process. So even though you say, yes, we've been directed by our Secretary of the Interior, the direction is all toward this task force. The BGN Executive Secretary will be on the task force. I don't know if we as staff will be invited to participate at all. We're as much in the dark as you are at the moment. We've been sort of consulted along the way, but my impression is the task force will sort of, quote, do what it wants to do here, and we will not be included. The question I have absolutely is that we have a number of SQUA name changes pending. There were some in Colorado, at least the one in Teller County. We have
Ms. Runyon, I don't mean to cut you off here. We actually, looking at the list that Chris sent us, there's a link to the USGS list of names, and there's 28 that I'm seeing on that list of SQUA references to geographic features in Colorado. And then out of those, 4 of those, it looks like span Utah and Colorado and Oklahoma and Colorado.
That makes sense. Yeah, there's going to be some features that straddle state lines. So you're right, Tim. Thank you. So 28 features currently in Colorado. And again, other than the one in Teller County, which we have a proposal pending, any others that are already in the works? In other words, we've received a proposal and it's working its way through the review process. My understanding at this point is they will continue as they have. They will still be on our review list. They will still be presented to you all for a review and discussion and presumably a decision. We'll still do the outreach to the counties, towns, Forest Service, for example. But, and we're continuing to receive new proposals. In fact, the morning after the orders were announced, we received one new one in Idaho. And since then, I've received 6 others to change squaw names nationwide. So for the near term, the process is continuing as it has before. But at some point, I would not be surprised if the task force says, okay, close the doors to any new proposals. Let us take over and go through our process. Again, until they have their first meeting, and there are 4 BGN members that will serve on the task force. But the remaining members will come from areas of tribal interest, diversity and equity folks at Department of the Interior, a couple of other folks who know nothing about geographic names. And, recall how you all felt, unfamiliar with the process, a year and some months ago. And they'll be like you. They'll need training. They'll need explanation of what is a geographic name, what is the current process, how did these names come to be. Everything, all the background that you all got from us. So it's going to be some time, I think, to get them up and running. But again, there is this defined timeline that they want it all done essentially by next fall, sort of the latest possible date. So again, I don't know what will happen with the ones that are currently pending.
So
For the
Ms.
near term,
Runyon,
we'll continue.
with those 28 then, and kind of the process you lay out, if I'm understanding this correctly, they're going to shift 28 new names and then share those out, and this body would have 30 days to respond. So it would have to occur sometime between one of our meetings, or we would have to schedule a meeting appropriately if we wanted to deal with that. And that'll be quite a challenge. That'll be interesting.
I know. And the fact that you meet once a month, at least is a benefit. We have several state names authorities that meet, but once, twice, maybe 3 times a year. How they're going to fit this into their schedule, I agree, Tim, is going to be a challenge. 30 days is not long. So I'm not sure what it's going to take. Again, Federal Register notice, will you be notified that notice is out there? This task force is supposed to come with its own staff from the Department of the Interior. But again, like I said, they're going to be as clueless and unfamiliar with this process as anyone else. We'll have to train them, get them up to speed. It's going to be bam, bam, bam. It's going to happen really quickly. And I think we're all going to be caught off guard in the expectations. So I'm not sure what to say other than stand by and be ready. Yeah, we'll do our best.
Representative Benavides.
I had another question, because when you say they're going to name it after nearby geographic features, in our appendix B on what we should do, we talked about not trying to avoid duplicate names in the same county. So you might have something nearby, using your example, named Cottonwood. Now you have something else with that same name. Why
Right.
are they, won't that cause some problems?
Yeah, we hear you. And in fact, when we were working with the developer on this replacement list, we instructed them to remove the same feature type. So you would not have a Cottonwood Mountain replacing Squaw Mountain where there's another Cottonwood Mountain nearby. In other words, don't replace a mountain with a mountain name. Don't replace a creek with a creek name. But you're absolutely right. And they're supposed to be going out sort of 5 miles. And then if they can't find any name in 5 miles that's suitable, they could provide 5 more names as an option. But I just don't see how this group of 12, this task force, is going to get through 660 names in the 30 days they'll be given. I know they're going to divide up the list, and all the features, for example, that fall on Forest Service land will be assigned to the Forest Service member on the BGN. And she in turn will want to share it with her regional staff. They're going to have feedback. You're right. In addition to looking at the list of names, the expectation is they will have a map link so they can see, as you said, the cottonwood features in the area and say, wait a second, this is going to introduce confusion. Let's move to number 2 on the list and let's look around the area. If that doesn't duplicate something else, we're good. And then number 3 and so on. So it's going to require an awful lot of analysis, map reading, again, by people who are not geographers, looking for, quote, the best replacement. I don't know. It's going to be a challenge, and it
Ms. Runyon,
sounds great
I've
on
got-
paper, but
I've got 2 other hands raised. I've got Dr. Way first, and then we'll go to Dr. Limerick. Dr. Way?
Yes, having been forewarned by Ms. Runyon, perhaps this group should anticipate having more than one meeting a month in order to deal with this influx of, well, names that we'll have to sort out.
you're right. Or you could take the attitude that, no, we're not going to necessarily review the list, or if we are, I don't know what's permitted. If you can do an email notice to members saying, here's the list of replacement names in our state. Do we need to meet to discuss them? You could do absolutely nothing and let the Department of the Interior go through the process and just change them. It depends on, obviously the Attorney General's, authority to call another meeting fairly quickly. Is there a quorum required? What form would that meeting take? Would you be voting the names up or down? Would you simply be discussing them and shrugging your shoulders and going, well, they're not great, but they're good enough? I don't know what to tell you, Dr. Way. I know it's going to be a challenge.
Dr. Way, we can certainly have that conversation, or even discuss, dividing this up and doing some more committee work kind of perhaps, and that type of outreach. So yeah, we'll have to consider something. Dr. Limerick?
Well, alrighty. So I am an armchair quarterback watching the Department of the Interior pretty closely for many years. And I'm also a fan of Supreme Court Justice Brandeis's statement that the states are the laboratories of democracy and that federalism is dynamic. So I'm just wondering why, given what we now have heard, might we step forward with a better approach and propose that, which is a very ambitious notion, but it's just a thought that I have met some of you never in person, but I have come to feel that you're my comrades in various ways. And so I'm just wondering if we might, this is very, it's borders on preposterous, but instead of just thinking, oh, this is top down and we are to submit, at that part we must submit because it is top down, which Interior often is. Sometimes it's not, but often is, that we could say, well, we are entirely aware that this is a well-intentioned initiative, and here is how it could be both well-intentioned and more viable and workable. Just a thought, and it's on the edge of preposterous. I recognize that. So there it is.
Right. And for what it's worth, I would add that there is a press release at the Department of the Interior website, and I can forward the links here when I'm done speaking. And it's an email address for comments. And I would suggest that if this board feels strongly that this is not the best approach, and you have some thoughts on how it could be done better, or just in general thoughts about the speed that this is all going to happen, or whatever your thoughts may be, maybe you have some other ideas. I invite you to submit comments to the task force. I think they really need to hear the feedback from the states. When Secretary Holland, when she was still representative in New Mexico, she was the co-sponsor of a House resolution last year to do the same thing. Of course, it didn't make it out of the 116th Congress, but nonetheless, she helped author very similar wording a year ago. And it essentially accused the US BGN of not being proactive enough, not being transparent enough, and not involving the public enough. Now, I would beg to differ as far as transparency. I concede that our website, and our way of divulging proposals is probably not ideal. It's very much reactive. We share information when asked, but there is a public proposal process. There has been for years. Again, transparency, yes, we have meetings and our minutes are posted and so forth. Not acting fast enough. Well, like I said in my very first introduction to you all, do people really want the federal government coming in and telling you, you will be offended by a name in your community, we're going to change it for you. Up till now, the answer has been no, of course not. Secretary of the Interior feels otherwise, that this is the right thing to do, and maybe it's not the best way to do it, but it accomplishes a massive sweep of offensive names off the landscape, all in one movement.
So,
And as far as not involving the public, we reach out to the county governments. You've seen, as much as we can do. You all are filling in the gaps for us. So I hear you, Dr. Limerick. It's a complete 180 from the way we've done things in the past. We've never been proactive, and now the federal government is.
so we really appreciate, again, Ms. Runyon, you coming on and joining us. That's very good information. Board members, do we have any thoughts or ideas on how we might want to approach this, or see if we can get ahead of it a little bit, or have some discussion? What are we thinking here? Any ideas?
I think it would be helpful if we saw the press release and learned a little
Okay,
bit
yeah.
more.
Yeah, I'll send the links here just momentarily. Yeah, I can do that. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Tim, if you like, I can try and give a much shorter, quick overview of the second secretarial order, because it'll be a very different approach. I know you have a tight agenda here, and I don't want to dominate all your time, but if I can touch on the second one, hopefully more briefly,
Real quickly, that'd be great.
because that'll come fast and furious right behind it. That will be Secretarial Order 3405, which will be to address, quote, all other offensive names on the landscape. Or, sorry, I should say derogatory names. There is a difference, derogatory names. Of course, there is no official list of derogatory terms. It's all subjective, but that will be an advisory committee. So unlike the first one with a task force, which is all federal members, federal employees, the advisory committee, or advisory council under the second order will comprise of both federal and state and private sector individuals, tribal members. They will be vetted by the White House. So it'll be a much more formal process. That advisory council will meet, I'm hearing, starting in the spring. And the first thing they will need to do is come up with a list of words they feel need to be changed. And again, the focus right now is on derogatory words. So not necessarily addressing offensive words. So for an example, Mount Evans. Evans is not in itself a derogatory word, but it represents the name of a person who did offensive deeds. So they preferred to use the derogatory word. So I'm going to assume that they're not going to address features named for individuals, right? At least not right away. They've got a list of other words. And I'm sort of surprised, I confess, that since Congressman Al Green from Texas was one of the co-sponsors of this, an African-American man, and I would have thought he might have pushed at least to include the word Negro with the squaw name list in the first order, but no. So Negro presumably will be another word that will be addressed. And you already have some features in Colorado named Negro that are being addressed already in the process. So presumably there'll be, I don't know what, 2 dozen other words they want to address. They will then put out an invitation for name change proposals for any of those words. Presumably, again, there'll be another master list somewhere with invitation. That I expect will take years. So that is also when you can provide input, presumably, to proposals that we receive or that the advisory council receives to change other derogatory words. So I would almost envision the first order addressing squaw is almost like a pilot project in a way, lessons learned, what went right, what went wrong, what was the feedback that we got, how could we do it differently? But there'll be very different bodies addressing the 2 secretarial orders. Again, the second one will take much longer. So anyway, just be ready for that one, and I'll have more to report, I expect, in the spring on that one.
Okay.
Thank you
Very
again, Tim. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, Ms. Runyon. Any other comments, thoughts, board members? We'll think about this and maybe think about how we come up with a game plan. I don't have any thoughts necessarily right now. Dr. Way's kind of probably in line of where we need to consider going in terms of some extra meetings or assistance if we want to have some real sort of bona fide input, if you will, I think.
Yeah, and I will add that I'm really hoping in the new year, as soon as the task force is up and running, that they will provide some guidance to state names authorities. Because the fact is, I'm getting the same questions that you're submitting today from every other state names authority. Now, where do we fit in this process? What is our role going to be? And to be honest, this is going to sound off. I'm tired of saying it 50 times. I think we owe you some sort of a summary of all of this once the task force is up and running. They have to understand how much state names authorities are involved in the renaming process, and where do you fit in? And I've drafted some Q&A that I'm waiting for someone to give me some answers to, but again, we've been told this is not the BGN staff's responsibility. We are essentially being excluded from this process. So I hate to use the phrase, it's not my job, but I want to be involved, but we're being excluded. So we have as many questions as you have at this point. So all I can say is bear with us, and maybe every month for a while, I'll need to give you an update. So again, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. We
I hear
look
you.
forward to those updates.
Okay.
Okay, great. Now moving on to the new agenda item 7 here, consideration of US BGN case 5113, an unnamed feature to Cimarron Peak. It's on pages 15 to 31 of our packet. I have real quick, Mr. Davis, you were the proponent here. I see you've got a hand up. Do you have any updates for us regarding this matter?
I just, by the way, I read in this presentation of the minutes of the last meeting, and I think they expressed what I had stated very clearly and well. I don't have anything new. I just want to reiterate, and I'd like to just read a couple of brief passages. The name of this book is The First Passage, Blacks in the Americas, 1502 to 1617, by Colin Palmer. And read this: the word Cimarron, at least in the eyes of the Spaniards, had negative connotations. It was generally a synonym for wild, fierce, or untamed. On the other hand, the escapees may have worn it as a badge of honor, in the same way that the descendants of the Maroons in the English-speaking Caribbean do today. This same book goes on to discuss part of the rocky road that these people had for a while. But then and I'm just trying to show the legitimacy of this title and these people. There was a battle, almost a battle. Instead of battling the leader of the Cimarrons, whose name was Yanga, and now I'm reading, on the terms of the agreement, the Spanish authorities recognized the freedom of the Cimarrones and allowed them to establish and govern their own town. And then it goes on to more details of it, but it shows that they went through a progression over time and became a very legitimate people. So I feel to classify Cimarron as a negative connotation based on the experience of these people is just misplaced. And I'm hoping that the group will vote to move this request forward today. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to join us. Director Redhorse, I believe you had a Colorado Commission on Indian Affairs meeting last month, and was this one of those that you had discussed on the agenda?
Thank you, Chairman Mock. We did submit the proposals to the CCI Commission, all 6 of them, but they did not provide any further feedback. We also did host a meeting and invited the 48 tribes with historic ties to Colorado. They did not provide any feedback on this particular proposal.
Thank you. Is Councilmember Joseph still with us? She dropped off. I think she was going to reach out to NAACP and Representative Exum. I'm not certain if you were ever able to get a hold of Candace McKnight.
I did get a hold of her and unfortunately, I wasn't able to get very much feedback from her.
Okay.
I'll continue to reach out to her and some other contacts in the Springs.
Okay, very good. So there's where we are, board members. Do we have any further discussion? Do we want to continue this? Do we want to take this up? Thoughts? Representative Benavides.
I would, I don't know that we have a process for this, but informally where people are on this, because this is the only one that's come to us so far that is a proposed name for something that has no name at all. And so it's not like if we don't do this, then nothing is really changed. And I know we've kept moving it forward, but honestly, and I thank Mr. Damien for bringing this forward, but and I know it's a name that has been used in the past, but I think part of our charge is really looking more carefully at these. And even though some think of it positive, some don't, you know? And so I would personally rather we err on trying not to be offensive to anyone. And if that name could be offensive to some, I'm not supportive of it. And I don't see a real need to do this since the feature has no name at this point. So I mean, I'm just wondering where everybody is since we've moved this forward, and should we act on it or should we continue for people to continue to reach out?
Board members, other opinions? Ms. Runyon, it looks like you raised your hand there in response, perhaps.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Representative Benavides. You make a very good point, but I just wanted to clarify that historically, the US BGN's focus was, through much of its 125-year history, really was to apply new names to unnamed features. It's really only been in recent years that the focus has been redirected on name changes. But the reality is, if you look at the history of decisions made by the BGN, they're almost vast majority have been new names just like this one, or to make an official a name that's already in local use, just not recognized on federal products. And if you look back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, when USGS was mapping so much of the West at a larger scale, we were inundated with proposal like this, requests to name unnamed features and apply new names. And you know, obviously the probably one of the reasons for reestablishing the Colorado Geographic Names Board was to certainly to address name changes and primarily, you know, offensive names on the landscape. And certainly it's become your focus already, I think, in addressing name changes. But I just wanted to clarify that historically, state boards were involved more with new names than name changes. In case it helps set some, make some clarification there, if that helps.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Chimino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with the general sentiment of Representative Benavides, and I wonder if this board might consider a pause. Perhaps we could take a few months to see if our bylaws need some additions to focus on this naming new features, or features don't have a name, just kind of adding, so it's very robust. I think we have right now a robust process by which consider changes. So not, you know, so I think a pause might be in order, but we'll see what other people think.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Davis, I'm going to hold off on 1 second. Let me see. Let me pan the board here. Board members. Director Barry.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should look at establishing some different criteria for naming new features. I think that would help us.
Okay, so am I hearing that I've got one to just remove this idea, the other is to have a conversation? Do we want to make a motion on this, or do we want to put the pause and have a conversation maybe next month about addressing new names? The other idea, and I think we're going to approach this later in the agenda here with one of the proposals, is that to speed things along, you can also keep it open and we can ask the proponent if they might want to consider some other names. That way we're not going back through some reviews and we can then swap that out as well. Dr. Limerick?
I would just say that where I'm most eager to have a clearer sense of procedure is the degree to which we want to know that a good sector of a community, whatever that might mean, wants the change. So to see, and I'm not thinking, let's have people hire petition sign accumulators and stand outside grocery stores and so on. That is not my vision at all. But I'm just wondering if we could really be very conscious of knowing when a significant sector of the community has said, this is what we want to do. We have an unnamed feature and we want it to have a name, and this is the name we want, and this is why we want it. It reflects our community in this way or that. So I'm sure that was going to be part of the deliberations, but that's the thing that I think I would be most interested in knowing more about.
Yeah, I think the challenge that we're kind of facing is getting to the significant sector of the community, and what does that look like? I do want to note that, you know, we do have the Board of County Commissioners that did sign off on this. Granted, they weren't part of this conversation, and that was again 2019 when that occurred. Any other board members? Mr. Davis, do you have any comment based on the conversation here?
Well, my personal feeling is that it's an overreach to deny this because of preferring to err on the side of caution, in that the people that originated the negativity of this were the Spanish slave owners in Central America, not somebody in history that I think we should regard highly and have their opinion deny this feat.
So
that's
yeah, and I want to address the overreach part though a little bit, and just remind you that what this body does is simply provide recommendations. This is not the end all be all. If you would like this to move forward, I think what I'm sensing here is a little, I don't feel a real strong desire, perhaps for lack of better terms, to move this one forward. There are 22 features named Cimarron in Colorado. I'd bring that up. And I think that if you'd like, there's, it's a process, and then this recommendation goes to the governor, and the governor actually makes a recommendation to the USBGN, which is actually the final decider on all of these matters. Granted, I appreciate that you understand that we do have some weight in terms of making these recommendations. But there are other opportunities to continue this forward and continue to make your case to the other deciders.
And I would hope that it could go that route to see if this concern that certain members of this board are stating holds up with others' opinions. And thank you very much for the consideration, and I do appreciate your diligence as a group, because we're all seeing names that are offensive that need to be changed. So
thank you.
Hope that you understand. I feel like I'm taking somewhat of a stand that may not be popular with this group, but I don't want that to be misinterpreted as having nothing but respect for the group. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Dr. Way.
Oh, I actually did not raise my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. I cut up.
Just, just a meaningless gesture on my part.
Okay. Representative Benavides.
I think what I was hearing from members was that maybe we should have a specific process for this. And I was trying to find my last update of our Appendix B, which is our process, and I don't seem to find the one we finally agreed to. And it may be important that we revisit it on the outreach. But what I'm seeing as one of the problems with the outreach is we're all really busy and trying to find groups and reach out to them. But we know there are certain groups, like in the African American community, let's say in the Latino community. Dr. Wade did a really great job in identifying people in the Asian community to meet with. That maybe as members, we can identify some of those groups and we can put the board could put a letter together that when this comes up, that can automatically go out to those groups, and still the board members can follow up on it, but it makes sort of inconsistent results for us, and all we have is the ability to move it forward, because I think it is important to hear from communities that might be slighted or have been slighted by a name or potential name. So just a comment.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we identify and provide a list of names and addresses of outreach, and we can send out emails or notices that way on a grander scale, seeking some input. Okay, so with that, do we just want to continue this until we have that conversation? We can put this on the agenda for next month to discuss that. Board members, I got a thumbs up there, thumbs up. Okay, so let's do that. With that, then I'll open this up to public comment. Is there any additional public comment regarding this matter? Seeing none, do I have a motion to continue this matter to a future board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Get a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Mondragon, I noticed that you typed something there in the chat just as I was closing the public comment. Did you want to elaborate there on your comment?
Thank you. Good morning. Simply just love the thought of identifying some community groups and that you all may consider communicating with, and just ask the question if you would welcome suggestions of community groups for your consideration.
Absolutely. On our website, there is a section for comment. And so I think that might be the best way to register that. And that way we can track it from the public in terms of some of the outreach that we can add to this list that would generally come out on these matters. So thank you for that.
Very good.
Okay, board, we are now on agenda item 9, pages 32 to 63, consideration of USBGN case 5124, Chinaman Gulch. Dr. Wei, I'm going to let you kick us off here. You've had some conversations and I appreciate that. And actually, you know what, if I could pause for a second, maybe if I could let Commissioner Baker's got to run to a transportation meeting. Would you mind if he comments real quick?
Yes, I think it would be great if you would comment.
Okay, great. Commissioner Baker, appreciate you joining us here. Good to see you, sir. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks. What's going on?
Well, thank you for this opportunity, and I will be brief because I do have to jump over, and I know you guys have a lot to do. I think Yansing Gulch, Resilience Gulch, transliterated into English is an appropriate name. While we haven't taken a vote on it or really discussed it in great depth, I think it's consistent with what our objectives are for renaming, and it does honor the Chinese American presence here in the Valley, which was supposedly the intent of the current name, but it does do it in a way that is more meaningful and honors those people. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you, and have a good rest of your day there.
You too.
Dr. Wei.
Commissioner Baker. Yes, I want to thank Commissioner Baker for taking the time to join us. Okay, well, as you all know, Chairman Mock had convened a subcommittee to review the name of Chinaman Gulch. And that subcommittee consisted of Representative Benavides, Professor Gonzalez, and myself. We convened 2 meetings with members of the community to address the issue. We agreed that Trout Creek Gulch was an inappropriate substitute for Chinaman Gulch and decided to search for an alternative. Kim Twombly, who originally submitted the proposal to change the name to Trout Creek Gulch, graciously agreed to this. Since we could not find the name of the Chinese after whom Chinaman Gulch was supposed to honor, community members agreed to find a name that honored the Chinese who worked in Chaffee County and Colorado in general. As Commissioner Baker just pointed out, the name that was selected was Yensing Gulch. Yensing means resilience in Cantonese. And to understand that, put it in the context of resilience in the face of adversity. By the way, Cantonese was the dialect spoken by the Chinese immigrants during this period. By the way, would Representative Benavides and Professor Gonzalez like to add anything to what I just summarized for the meetings?
Representative Benavides.
Oh, I'll let Nikki go first.
Dr. Gonzalez.
I'll just say that Dr. Wei, I mean, he led a model of getting feedback from the community, and I thought it was really good. There was a mix of young people, activists, scholars, community workers, and so it was really, I thought it was really effective the way we came to an agreement.
Yeah, certainly sounds like that. Representative Benavides.
Yes, I agree completely with what Dr. Gonzalez said and wanted to add that, you know, the depth of how this was reviewed by the participants. I mean, I recall one participant had done the research on what part of China most of the immigrants at that time came from. And that's how we figured out, or actually was the Chinese scholars that were on the calls that understood and figured out that there were different dialects in the Chinese language based on the area of where they came from. And that was so important in determining the correct pronunciation, the correct word to use. Because as you recall, we initially was proposed was a different word, but then through that research, they found that that was probably not the best word to be representative of the Chinese immigrants in that area. And I'm just wanted to stress how important it is to reach out to people with that cultural expertise and what they can bring to the discussion and help us in the evaluation of these. So I want to also thank all of them for participating, but also Dr. Wei for all of his work in getting them together.
Great, thank you. Dr. Gonzalez.
Sure, I'm glad Representative Benavides brought that up. So the first word we had was resiliency in terms of like a science term, that a material would be resilient and would not break. And so the clarification came with a scholar who said, no, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for resilience in the face of adversity. So just to add a little bit more detail to what Representative Benavides was talking about.
Dr. Wei.
So as a result of our meetings, we recommend that Yensing Gulch replace the name Chinaman Gulch. This, of course, would be in keeping with Secretary Hallen's directive that derogatory names of the nation's geographic features be reviewed and replaced.
Dr. Wei, do you have a spelling for that?
Oh, yes. The first name, Y-A-N, second name, S-I-N-G.
Okay.
So Yensing Gulch. Easy to spell, easy to pronounce.
And so, I'm sorry, Representative Benavides.
Dr. Wei, I thought we were also, even though we were using the Romanized name,
yes,
we were hoping to add in parentheses the characters, the Chinese characters. Was that not correct?
Well, I think for the sake of easy usage, we could just keep the Romanization of the Cantonese name And then in the literature associated with it to explain that name, we might want to include, if you will, the Chinese characters.
Okay, thank you. Board members, thoughts? And actually, let me back up here. I understand that Ms. Twombly, who submit the original letter, she is willing to accept as a substitution in her proposal the name that we came up with working with the community and Commissioner Baker.
Yes, she has done so in writing as required.
Okay, thank you. Board members, thoughts? Dr. Gonzalez, I see your hand up. Did I?
Sorry, I just forgot to take it down.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry.
So, board members, we've had, like I said, Dr. Limerick, there you are. Mute button. I already got mine out of the way this morning.
Yeah, I've been chatting too much, so I probably was trying to save the group by putting mute on. Anyway, I just want to join the chorus that I just think Dr. Wei has really set a model, and we were all going to be in his footsteps. It's a little bit like taking one of those Arthur Murray dance classes, really, just to watch him move through this and to think, yeah, let's do that. Let's do those steps and stages. So thank you, Dr. Wei. That's it.
Great, thank you. Other thoughts, board members? Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Dr. Wei and Dr. Gonzalez and Representative Benavides for your special outreach work. Very impressive. I wanted to be clear about Commissioner Baker's comment. I am just now taking a look at the Chaffee County Board of Commissioners letter. It seems to be a tepid letter of support. It's not specific to this name, but Commissioner Baker, I think, was saying that the commission would be okay with this Yangtze name change, although they have not taken a vote on it. Are we anticipating that there will be any issue with the Board of County Commissioners in a formal recognition of the name change?
Dr. Wei.
Commissioner Baker graciously joined us in our conversations, and he implied that there would be no opposition to the name change. The only question was to find the appropriate name. And I think Yangtze is an appropriate name because it honors, once again, the Chinese who worked in Chaffee County and in that general region of Colorado, as well as all the others in the state.
Dr. Wei, I can add to that. Beth Helmke here. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for Chaffee County, and I can affirm that this has been brought to the attention of the sitting commissioners. The letter to which you're referring, I believe, was related to the original proposal for Ms. Twombly back several years ago, and the commissioners have been following the discussion up to this point. They have, as you noted, not taken a formal stance to either support or not the current name proposal, but they are aware and have sort of that tacit approval, as you alluded to. So I don't anticipate them having both a formal approval, but neither do we anticipate them having any resistance to the proposed name and its approval.
Very helpful. Thank you. Yes, and I do note now this letter is dated 2019. So I just noticed that. Thank you very much for that explanation.
Yeah, in Director Garcia, actually, there's a updated memo here, I think page 35 that Dr. Wei had put together, recounting the meeting there. The last two bullet points, it sounded like that the group had agreed upon using the Romanized name for the Romanized Cantonese name for resilience, which we now have that. Representative Benavides.
Yes, and Director Garcia, I don't think you were here at the last meeting, and we had more discussion on this is a substitute name, and that process, even with a substitute name, has to go back to the USBGN, and they will send out those letters again, both to tribes and the county levels for a final commitment. So this is not where it's going to go directly to the governor as a recommendation without that backup. I think that's a correct statement. And
Let
maybe
me,
directly
let me
clarify.
Representative Benavides, because that's a very good point. Because I was under I guess the way I had heard it was that we could substitute it and send it into our recommendation to the governor and then on to the BGN. What the BGN may have to do then is up to them. Ms. Runyon, can I call on you one more time here to help us out?
Yes, thank you, everyone. You're absolutely right. This would essentially start the process over at the BGN level. We would need a proposal, whether that be the governor's recommendation with the Colorado board being listed as the proponent, or whether some particular member of the board is the proponent, whether it's a collective recommendation by the full board. But the bottom line is, yes, it must go back on our quarterly review list, which means that we will write a new case brief. And I can add that we are wrapping up the current quarterly list, which I'm hoping to get out at the end of the month, maybe early into January. But if by some chance we can get that in the next couple of weeks, we can include it on this coming review list. That is necessary because that's how we do our tribal outreach. We send a notice to all 574 recognized tribes regarding all new proposals on the review list. So without that, the tribes are not yet notified. So if we don't get the proposal in the next, say, 2 weeks, it'll be pushed to the next review list at the end of March, and then the 60-day tribal consultation period starts. So on the one hand, there's no real urgency here, I presume, but at the same time, the sooner we can get it on the BGN's radar, the better. I can certainly take the information out of the CGNAB packet and consider that essentially a proposal. Ideally, we'd like someone to complete our proposal form. I can put that link also in the chat, or you can go to our website and find it. That just kind of formalizes the process and starts it at our level. I would like to see something in writing. Again, I don't know if it's in the packet already, from the original proponent, Ms. Twombly. Because the proposal was sent to the US BGN, she can only withdraw it at the US BGN level. Having heard the discussion here today, and it sounds like you all feel very confident that she has withdrawn her proposal. I'm not going to get down into the weeds and insist we have something from her, but she's aware of these discussions, and if she's asserted that yes, she's withdrawing her original proposal, that's fine. We'll close it out, update that review list, and substitute the new name on the next review list. So it really comes down to timing.
So if we were to essentially submit a new proposal working with Ms. Twombly, whether it's she or if it's us, with a letter from her supporting that name, we include the county commissioner's letter in that. You've got our recommendation, and there's your proposal, and we would then send that in,
Right.
assuming that the governor concurred. You have your 60-day comment period. We wouldn't need to take it up unless, I'm assuming, we saw something come out of the comments that we might want to then reconsider it perhaps, but you could actually roll over right into your final decision process.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah, and I don't know, I think a couple meetings back, I think you all did talk about the need to maybe better formalize how you intend to submit what we're calling essentially counter proposals or new proposals. I don't know that you ever really kind of nailed down exactly what the process would be. Again, is the Colorado board the proponent? Yes, you're right. Ms. Twombly could be the proponent. Dr. Way could be the proponent. Commissioner Baker. We just need somebody on record to be listed as the person or group proposing this new name. So that's something maybe work out internally. But yeah, I'm mostly concerned with the timing. We can do a bare bones case brief, or it'll be more than bare bones. I mean, there's a lot of material already available. We have the name, we have the reason, we have the meaning, we have the location, obviously. So, my thinking is we go ahead and put it on this upcoming quarterly review list, just to start that 60-day clock ticking immediately. And you're absolutely right. If you are the proponent, then I don't know that you need to reaffirm that. By virtue of you all presumably voting today to endorse that name, that is your recommendation. And you're right, where the governor fits into that. Yeah, that's something you have to.
So we're
that could
testing
come
out our
later.
processes and we're going to test out yours here.
Right. Yeah. And we can get the governor's final sign off, after the review list comes out. I mean, unless you think there's a chance he won't support this, I think we can go into the assumption that at some point he'll sign off on it. But again, it's not my place to assume that. But rather than wait for him, my inclination is to go ahead this quarter with this name. I mean, it can always be withdrawn or changed later if need be. But again, it's that 60-day tribal window that needs to be accounted for.
I'm thinking that board members, that if we feel good about this, then we make a recommendation to the governor that this be substituted and that the naming advisory board, we can decide whose actual name is on there to represent this, that in our recommendation that we would submit that new proposal to the BGN. What do we think about that, board members?
I think that's a great idea.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Let me open this up and see if we have any public comment regarding this matter. If you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand and we'll identify you and give you an opportunity to say a few words. Mr. Mondragon.
Morning, thank you. My name is Daniel Mondragon, and just a couple of quick points and kind of reactions to listening to the conversation. First of all, definitely appreciate the thought about being expedite this as efficiently as possible. If possible, if not to list as proponent, but perhaps as supporter, the groups that were contacted and were part of identifying the most appropriate name. May be good to note, be sure to note those if they agree, to show not only this proposal has the strength of your this body's stance of accepting it, but also the community and those community members that are most interested in this change. As one who has my wife's background is from Hawaii. She's of Japanese Filipina descent. And when we go there, we love to look around the state. And this last trip, we had the opportunity to stop at a historical place that had some wonderful educational placards with regards to, one of them was talking about the workers from a certain area of China that were instrumental in helping in the agricultural endeavors in Hawaii. And so I just urge the opportunity, as Dr. Limerick talked about with, as you're discussing Mastahe Mountain, the opportunity for education in various ways, including placards near the landmark that is being renamed, or the place that's being renamed. So just a couple of thoughts for your consideration.
Great, thank you very much. Any additional public comment?
I guess if I might add to Tim, that it occurred to me, of course, this gulch is on a Bureau of Land Management land, so we would need their input as well. I don't know if anyone's on this meeting today from BLM, but they would also need to be given a chance to weigh in. I wanted to apologize. I should have checked. They have already, that's right. They had said no to the Trout Creek Gulch proposal for the same reasons you all have cited, local opposition and not an appropriate replacement. So we'll give them a chance to weigh in on Yansing Gulch as soon as we can.
Okay, very good. And I'm sorry, let's see, do we have additional public comment? Mr. Is it Asakawa? Help me out there, I apologize.
Yes, no, Asakawa is actually correct. So you didn't say Asakawa or Asawaka, or, I've had all those. I am a member of the Asian American Pacific Islander community in the Denver area. Been in Colorado a long time. And I am very pleased with both this process and Dr. Way's and his committee's proposal to change the name to Yansing. I think what I like about it, and I know Dr. Way and and have worked with him, but I think it's so important to not just reach out to the community or to pay lip service and check off a box and say, well, we did an Asian thing, but to reach out and to think and to choose the right language, to choose an appropriate word, and to choose a name that is inspirational and aspirational and covers all the bases really of injustices of past and the current hopeful, I say that with some reservation, feelings about, race and culture in this country. I want to thank Dr. Way. I want to thank the members, of an organization in Denver called KAPU that I am not associated with anymore, even though I was. And I think this is a great suggestion. And I hope you all think so as well.
Great. Appreciate you joining us this morning and for your comments. Thank you. Next up, I see Daniel's iPhone. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. Daniel Tom.
Daniel, I'm sorry. Yeah, can you give us your full names for the record?
Yeah, Daniel Tom, Tom, Chaffey County. Sorry, I'm traveling today. I fully support this. I'm from Chaffey County, Asian American, Chinese, but I believe when Dr. Wei and everyone worked on proposing a new name change, I believe I tried to reach out to as many Asian American groups within Colorado to see if we can get a group to work on this. And I think that group was reflective in the name change. And I think Yansing would be a great replacement to change for a name change. We did try to do some research, or I did, to find anyone that was that we could associate with the Gulch or who lived there. And historically, I could not locate anybody in that area. So I think this is a good name to honor the Chinese American experience in Colorado. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, we will close public comment. Board members, any final thoughts, motions? Dr. Wei.
Yes, if you're asking for a motion, I move that we accept Yancey as a replacement for the name Chinaman Gulch and recommend that to the governor.
Oh, second.
We recommend that to the governor and that the naming advisory board would submit a proposal.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think Dr. Limerick gets the award for the speediest second.
And I seconded it 5 or 6 times. I didn't just second it once. I thought I'm like 7th or 8th now. It's not just second. So, okay. If I was greedy, I will back off and let someone else take that role.
Dr. Limerick,
No,
I think you beat Mr. Benitez to that. So go with it.
Very vigorous. That's good.
Well, thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Representative Benavides.
Since I think the governor will be looking at this, or his staff, in determining whether he adopts our recommendation or not, I did want to say, in light of Mr. Tom's statement, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the public affairs person from Chaffey County, and Commissioner Baker, that they have really been involved and been supportive. And I think it was their work, Mr. Tom is one of their attorneys up there. And if you recall, the first time we talked about this, he regretted not being more vocal at the commissioners meeting. And I think the commissioners really have said, in effect, that, you know, maybe they didn't do enough due diligence on this. And I think, to quote Commissioner Baker, they wanted to be on the right side of history in moving forward to recognize the Chinese immigrants in that area. And I think this is a great way to do this. That was all.
Yep, and I think, Dr. Wei, we'll work with you and get some letters of support to add to the proposal if this motion passes, so that we can have all of that kind of tied up into our proposal and make it as complete on our end as possible.
Yes, not a problem.
Perfect. Okay, any other comments? With that, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Those, Dr. Wei, you and those involved, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this and kind of lay out that process. So thank you very much. And we will work together on pulling that recommendation to the governor together and the proposal to the BGN. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Board members, we're about an hour and a half in. Do we need a 5-minute quick break? Okay, let's take 5 minutes. It is 9:22. We'll try and come back here at, how about, let's just say 9:30. Okay, 9:30. Come back to order here. All right, next up here, we have agenda item 11, consideration of USBGN case 5153, renaming Redskin Mountain to Mount Jerome. It's on pages 64 to 83 of your packet. Director Redhorse, let me turn to you and see if this was one of the items that were discussed.
Thank you. So the CCI commissioners did not have any feedback or comment on this particular proposal, but we did have a couple of comments from the Ute Indian tribe in Utah, and then the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe as well. What they would like to do is take this proposal back to have internal conversations with their tribal council, and then perhaps have feedback in a written form by our January meeting next month.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other additional comments or thoughts about this? Appreciate Director Redhorse you bringing this up. Gives us some opportunity here. Board members, any thoughts? Representative Benavides.
I just wanted to say, in the packet, I guess it's on page 67, there is a new letter that came to us on the 24th of November since our last meeting from Miss Myers. And I just wanted to recognize it. And her point was that Mr. Rome, the artist who it's named after, that's good, but that maybe the people who had that land and others, she named suggestions but wasn't asking to substitute him. But I'm just pointing it out because it does raise some concerns from people in that area of the name.
Okay, I appreciate you pointing that out, Representative. We can follow up with Ms. Myers regarding that if we've got some concerns about the name there. And then her last suggestion there is contacting the Utes, and it sounds like we've got the Ute tribe out of Utah that is willing to make a comment here by next month. Board members, any other comments, thoughts? I don't see Miss Sarah Chandler, who was the proponent on. If you are, though, please go ahead and if you wanted to say a few words. And then with that, let's we can go ahead and just move this forward to continue this to our next or to a future meeting in January. Is there any public comment regarding this matter? Jesse, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on. I just wanted to thank Director Redhorse for initiating those conversations. We did not complete any additional outreach at this time. We didn't want to cause confusion by having multiple groups reaching out to various groups, organizations, tribal governments. So I missed the meeting last month, but I did watch the video. So thank you for posting those. That was very informative. And if we can be of assistance in any way, it sounds like outreach is kind of in process. So thank you, and we will wait for the comments from the Ute and Cheyenne Arapaho for the next meeting, and then I'll do some additional outreach locally on the forest once we have an additional name. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Nett. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. And so, board, do I have a motion to continue this to the January meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we are now on to agenda item 13. Consideration USBGN case 5279, renaming Negro Creek to Clay Creek. This is on pages 84 to 94 of your packet. Let me see here. Representative Exum, by any chance, did you have a conversation with Candace McKnight about this matter?
I just text her this morning to reach out again. And unfortunately, she said she didn't get my information initially. So I resent it and kind of gave her a little summary of what we were looking for. So hopefully I'll hear back from her in the next few days.
Okay, thank you. And Director Redhorse, was this discussed at the CCIA meeting by any chance?
So the one hosted with the 48 tribes, it was discussed. There is no necessarily feedback on either support or non-support of the name change. However, the Ute Indian tribe did want to highlight that the Delta County is the heartland of the Uncompahgre Ute tribe. And so she just, again, didn't want to agree or support or not support, but wanted that to be acknowledged.
Thank you. Representative Benavides.
Director Redhorse, are you going to reach out to the Uncompahgre Indian tribe?
That is the Ute and Indian tribe. So it was a band that is a particular band from the Ute tribes. They may provide feedback. Again, I think she's going to go back to the council and see, but at this time, there was no further comment.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Soups, I appreciate you joining us this morning. Wasn't sure if you had something else you wanted to add, but want to certainly give you the opportunity. I know that you're anxious for us to make move this along. So with that, please.
Yeah, we just you know, we've been at this for about 3 years now. We did a pretty extensive process through the schools for the renaming. This has been in numerous newspaper articles, plenty of reach out, just, you know, just like to try to see this follow through here. You know, we did our due diligence to try to do the right thing and get as much feedback as possible. And just would like to see it move forward so we can reward these kids for their effort in this renaming.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner. I really appreciate you taking the time. I think we're kind of getting close here, it sounds like, but yeah, definitely, again, certainly hear you and appreciate the efforts that the county put forth. Is there any public comment regarding this matter? Please signify by raising your electronic hand. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Board members, what do we think? Representative, let me start with Representative Exum and then Benavides.
Thanks, Chairman. And I apologize for not getting the information back that we need, but since I was able to make contact today, if we can hold this off at least until our next meeting, I really would like to hear from the African American community and the historical impact.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Representative Benavides.
Thank you. I was just going to make a motion that we continue this till our next month's meeting to hear both from the African American community and the Ute tribe.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Rick Garcia.
Thank you, Director. We've got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, on to agenda item 15, consideration of USBGN case 528, renaming Negro Mesa to Clay Mesa, pages 94 to 105 of the packet. These two, as we all know, are tracking together. I think that unless there's any further discussion or comments, and I'll give an opportunity for anybody to raise their hand, I would just say that the comments that we just had and the conversation we just had also be reflected regarding this matter. Is there any further discussion or thoughts regarding this? Representative Benavides.
I'd make a similar motion to continue this to wait for feedback to the following month.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Representative Exum.
Great, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then let me just make sure here we open it up to public comment just to see if there is any public comment regarding this matter. Please raise your electronic hands on Zoom. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Okay. Now on to agenda item 17, consideration of USBGN case 5310 Calkins Lake to Union Reservoir, pages 106 to 149 in your packet. I did notice that we had some members, I believe, of the or some kin of the Calkins. Would you like to, and I know that we also have a letter or an email that was transmitted that is in our packet there as well, regarding some of the family history regarding this matter. Would somebody from the family, or those of you that want to raise your hands and say a few words? And Miss Shiel, is it? Did I pronounce that right, Judith? Need you the mute button there.
Yes, Nanette Armstrong is here. My son is going to try to sign in, Tim Shiel. He's a Colorado resident. He lives in Erie. Colorado, and owns 5 subways in Boulder. So he's quite interested in our family history. I don't know who else is here. Nanette, you want to speak?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Okay, Ms. Armstrong, please. Good morning.
Hello, thank you for hearing us. My name is Nanette Armstrong. I'm the Vice President of the Calkins Family Association. We are a nationwide, actually a worldwide family organization with ties to the Calkins family name. There are over 10,000 of us in North America with the Calkins name. They actually carry the name. Of course, others, that was my maiden name. So we are actually one of the most active family associations in North America. We're over 25 years old, and we have over 300 members. You heard the history. Mr. Carlton Calkins came from New York to Chicago, and then he ended up as one of the pioneers coming to Colorado. And then this lake that has his name was on the land that he owned, and he helped turn it into a bigger lake. And he was quite active in the Colorado political scene and the community there. So anyway, if you have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer them. And we're very excited that we have the chance to keep the Calkins Lake as Calkins Lake or Calkins Reservoir. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Armstrong, are you familiar with the letter that we received from Melissa Calkins?
Yes.
Okay, I did have a question regarding that.
Okay, I can probably answer that.
I'm sorry?
I can probably answer your question.
Okay, let me see here then. In the letter, if I understood correctly, Mr. Calkins passed in 1927, but not before building the reservoir, whose name was the depression on his land. But then I think you also explained that the local name change from Calkins Lake to Union Reservoir appears to have taken place around 1903, when the Union Ditch Company of LaSalle began drilling a tunnel to release water into the St. Vrain. So was he still alive when that sort of the reference to Union Reservoir came along? And do you know the history there?
I do not know that history. I know he was a farmer, and then I think he kind of retired and moved into town, and then he was into banking and politics. He was known as Potato Calkins at one time because he was a big potato farmer.
Nanette, he was also a civil engineer, and we have a very large diploma in a very large old frame that I had in my garage for years, and now it's going to be hanging in the Hugh Calkins home in Norwich, Connecticut, which is a historical home that we have taken on the saving of. And I just wanted to add that he was a civil engineer.
Thank you.
Yes, I do not know how the name went from Calkins to Union. You know how local places will take on a name, even though that might not be the official name. Since you're a naming committee, you realize some things might have 2 names.
And then nearby, there is a Calkins Pond or Calkins Lake, also that's sometimes, or maybe it is referred to as, is it Jim Ham Pond, because that's the name of the natural area there. What's the history between that with that lake and the name on it?
You know, I really don't know. Again, you know, he had children. He had several children, and maybe one of the children lived there. Not everything gets written down. So I'm sorry to say I don't know. But it seems like it's going by the Ham name, Jim Ham Pond.
Yeah, in what I was wondering is that we part of our charge is a little bit to try to, or is to kind of also try and avoid duplicate names.
Exactly.
And so I wasn't certain if we ought to be considering one or the other in some respects to this matter, and resolve the Calkins name on one of them, if that ought to be something we ought to be thinking about. And I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
I don't know about the smaller pond. We do know that the larger lake, what's now called Union Reservoir, used to be the Calkins Reservoir, Calkins Lake, and that's where Carlton Calkins actually lived. That was on his land.
Okay, great. Thank you. We really do appreciate you joining us. Do you have anything else to add?
No, we're just very excited for the opportunity.
Great, thank you.
I also
Ms.
wanted
Shield?
to say, yeah, my son was planning on signing in at noon and I'm in North Myrtle Beach right now, but he is in Colorado remodeling some stores. He also has a business that remodels other subways. And we had a reunion in Colorado several years ago in Colorado Springs. We had over, I believe, 100 people that attended. We did plan on having one last year in Denver, a Calkins Family Association meeting with probably over 100 people would have attended, but COVID, we had to cancel it. We do plan on having one in the future. We might also draw attention to our website that has one whole page of honorable kin who descend from the Calkins family, includes Bill Gates, which I always like to throw around that he's my cousin. We have a lot of history and we don't want to lose that history just because name changes. You know, my grandmother was a Calkins, so I lost the Calkins name in that situation. But anyway, I just wanted to say we don't want to lose our history. We do not want to lose our name. And I have no idea why the union people took it upon themselves to take on that name. It may not be official. Obviously, it's not. We'd like to see the Calkins name return to that reservoir for historical reasons only.
Well
Thank
said,
you.
Judy. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Benavides.
I want to thank the Calkins family members for joining us today and really responding to our requests from last month's meeting. I'm wondering, this is also a very different one, that the proponent on this is the USBGN. And it was just to make it to compare with local use. And from the stuff I'm reading here, it looks like in the 50s sometime is when they started calling it Union Reservoir. And I'm just wondering if the Calkins family was contacted at that time, or was it just people started referring to it that way?
Well, we do have a founding member, Ken Calkins, who's now in his 90s, so he's not quite as active. I did visit with him when I went to Colorado last June, I believe. I was in Colorado for a couple of weeks, and I did visit with Ken, and I might question him about that because he has lived in Colorado his whole life, I believe, and was like I said, a founding member in '97 when we formed this organization. I can check with him. I can't talk to him on the phone because he's hard of hearing, but I can send him an email. I did see him on the meeting today, but I'm sure he may not have caught that. Thank you.
Yeah, as far as I know, the Calkins family was never contacted to say, hey, we want to now start calling this Union Reservoir.
Okay, Representative Benavides, still to you.
One more follow-up, and it's my understanding that one of your ancestors had also served in the state legislature for at least a couple of years. And I think that's an important historical tie to that area, and that those lands were owned by your family. And I don't know if you wanted to say anything about his service in the legislature.
The man you're talking about is Carlton Calkins, the man of whom he was the civil engineer, and it was his land that the lake is on, and he was, instrumental in building that lake. So yes, he was in the banking industry. He was in the state legislature. He had a son that served in World War I. Yeah, same man.
Also, we have I don't know if I'm live now, but we have a Calkins family name on the Opera House in Denver to a large, I believe it was $2 or $3 million donation to rename that Opera House in Denver, L.A. Calkins Opera House. He named it after his wife. I believe she's still alive and well, and the children are active in Colorado. We haven't had much luck contacting them. They think we're after their money. So, but anyway, we have Ellen Calkins, I believe, Opera House, or L.A. Calkins Opera House in Denver. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Benavides.
And I was just gonna say, what, you know, that came up in another meeting and the names are spelled differently.
Yeah, that
Same
doesn't
name.
make any difference.
Same name.
Okay.
They are a descendant of Hugh Calkins, our original settler that came over with the Welsh party in 1635, 1640 time, settled in Marshfield, but then went up to Gloucester, Massachusetts for 9 years, left Gloucester because they weren't fishermen, they were farmers, went down to Norwich and New London, Connecticut. They are founders of both of those towns. They intermarried with the Lathrop line, which is Nanette and my line, which are Fuller line, which are Mayflower descendants, through Edward Fuller. So, I mean, there's a lot of history, not just with the Calkins name, but interrelationships with other people that have that Calkins heritage. And we have many, many members that do not have the Calkins name, but they're very protective of this name and very proud to have this name in their heritage, as I am. When I got into this after my grandmother died, I was shocked to find out that she was a Mayflower descendant, and I'm sure she didn't know that. But now I can share that information with my family and make sure that they all know. You know, my niece or my first cousin was going to school in Grand Rapids and found out she was taking classes in this particular building that was named after a Calkins. We have a Calkins name on a building at Central Michigan University where I got my master's. So, I mean, the Calkins name is all over the United States, and we want to protect that name. And if we legally can do that, we will try. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then let me just do a call out. Ms. Shield, you mentioned that Tim Shield was perhaps joining us.
Yeah, he was going to try. I don't know if he got in or not. He wasn't going to sign in till noon. So,
And Melissa Calkins, our president, she's a registered nurse. She had one of her nurses sick, so she's working. Otherwise, she would be here. She's the one who wrote the letter.
Okay, great. Thank you. So,
yeah, I'm sorry Tim didn't make it, but he's right in the middle of running a crew to remodel a store. So he was going to sign in at noon.
okay, thank you. Let me turn to the proposer here, which USBGN Representative Jenny Runyon. Did you have anything you wanted to add regarding this matter?
Thank you, and thank you certainly to the Calkins family for providing a lot of background and context here on this name. And as Tim mentioned, yes, we were the ones that sort of instigated this, but only in response to an inquiry from the city of Longmont and their Water Resources Office, which the gentleman spoke to this board a couple months ago, and basically saying that we had the name wrong on federal maps and that it had been Union Reservoir on city maps and other reports, and more recently on websites, again, as Union Reservoir, and they simply wanted it to be recognized for federal use. These are the challenging ones. You know, as you said, names evolve and sometimes places get two names, and it's kind of a pity this wasn't caught, recognized, 50, 60 years ago when the name was first changed by the city, because now we've got 60 plus years of local usage. Yes, this board is going to have to weigh, historical usage versus present day usage, and the fact that the city of Longmont recommends that the name be changed to Union Reservoir. So, when you've got city government support, I'm not sure what to say, but again, yes, we did initiate this, but not as though we just kind of came up with it overnight. We were asked specifically to change the name by the city government.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Shield, let me go to Representative Will real quick here with a question. Representative? Or comment?
Thank you, Chair Markin. I just want to mention also that, the water right decree is and the water decrees and the legal part of that is tied to Union Reservoir. And I appreciate the rich family history here, but I did want to mention the water right decrees as out of that reservoir to Union. So.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Ms. Shield?
Yes, I just wanted to say that the first white male born in Longmont was a son of Benjamin Calkins. I don't, off the top of my head, know his name, but I found that information in the Boulder Library file when I was there several years ago. So, I mean, Longmont has a history connected to the Calkins name too. And I'm sorry to hear that the water rights are under the wrong name. Thank you.
Okay, well, and typically the water rights might be filed under who files for the right essentially at that time. And that's, is there anyone from the city of Longmont that wants to say a few words? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I said noon, Tim was signing at noon. I'm on the Eastern Coast, so I meant 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Your time.
Okay, board members, this is a tricky one here. What are your thoughts? Representative Benavides.
Well, my thoughts are that the family has made a compelling case that the family, it was their land. They have no recollection of them being asked 50 or 60 years ago. And even with respect to water rights, when name changes are legally changed, you just put an addendum to that. But that shouldn't preclude us from doing that. And there hasn't been a strong case from other than it's been the usage for 50 years. And the fact that the county never reached out to the family, even now, is telling on their ability to follow through with the due diligence on the name. I'm more inclined to retain the name as is and deny the proposal.
Okay, board members, other thoughts? Representative Will.
Thanks, Chairman Mark. When we first heard this, remember I asked, were there any Calkins family members around there that we could talk to about this? And that was initially my thought, and now it turns out there's several. So I think it's good to hear from them. So just to comment that was an initial comment I had, is were there any Calkins family members still around in the area? So I guess we know that now. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Limerick. The mute button there.
That's probably because I'm not entirely sure whether this is something I want to say or not. So that's probably why. So, okay, so here's the scoop. This is not my own position I am holding, but I do know that in many parts of the American West now, maybe in the continent, there is concern about this thing that scholars and folks call settler colonialism, and the recognition that the settlers, who were often very hardworking and impressive people in lots of ways, but they were parts of the displacement of Indian people. So I wonder if with this issue and this occasion, if we want to think about where we will stand when other questions come up about honoring settlers. And will this, I guess I'm thinking, well, Governor Evans was kind of a settler. I'm just wondering if there is a way in which, with this respect to family heritage, which again, I don't believe I'm speaking for myself in this, but I do think I am speaking for people who do have those concerns about the enshrining or honoring or respecting or whatever the term is, settlers who were part of the invasion and relocation invasion of Indian people's land and their relocation and displacement. So, okay, so maybe sticking with the mute button might have been a better idea at this stage, but I just we want to have that on our minds because we will have other settler names. And will we want to then have do something that humanity hasn't really come up yet, a criterion for figuring out which are the ones, it sounds like, well, who are the ones that we feel okay about recognizing as settlers, and who are the ones, do we wait for acts of violence to say, no, that won't do, we can't be respecting that participant in the invasion of Indian people's land. So it may be that violence is committing acts of violence. That might actually be a pretty clear line of choice. So just to say that I think this will come up again, and what we do now might actually be something that we'd want to have said to ourselves. If the founder of the Calkins lineage did not commit acts of violence against the Native people, then that's something to note and steer by. So, okay, just to, okay, I'm going back to mute really fast now.
Okay, Ms. Shield.
Yes, several years ago, we sent two representatives, a son and a father, Jerry Calkins and his son Stephen, who are my first cousins once removed, from Michigan, to Norwich, Connecticut, to celebrate the purchase of the land for New London, I believe it was for Norwich, Connecticut, from the Mohican Indians. And the Indians were represented at that meeting in their Indian garb. And we went through the re-signing of the purchase of the land for Norwich, Connecticut. We did not take this land from the Indians, we purchased it. Now, I don't know the details, but I know if you check Norwich, Connecticut history, you'll see that the Calkins, Hugh Calkins, purchased this, land from the Mohican Indian chief. I believe his name is UNCAS. I don't know how to pronounce it. Thank you.
Representative Benavides.
I don't know, Commissioner Limerick. I was trying to think of the correct title. That her comments are true as we evaluate these. We do have to consider that and the proposals before us. I think the fact that that Ms. Shields' comments with regard to what happened in another state and maybe a purchase was made, it doesn't erase the fact that these lands were opened up for settlement and that they were acquired in that manner. And but that's not the question before us today. The question before us today is, it already is Calkins Lake, and do we want to change it to the proposed change of Union Reservoir? That's the only question before us. We have not looked, and it doesn't preclude someone in the future from saying, yes, Mr. Calkins did some bad things. I mean, I don't know that there would be anything. I'm just saying, should someone feel that way and want to propose something different? But the only question before us today is, we have the name as it exists, and the proposal is to change it to something else, which, other than local usage, there hasn't been a lot more said about it. And the same people requesting local usage are people that did not contact, or as far as anyone knows, the family, and didn't make a record of that. So I think if we get future ones, they can do more research and get into it. But in this case, that's really the question for us. And again, I'm not inclined to approve this request.
Thank you. Ms. Armstrong, I see you've got a hand up. Let me get to a couple of other board members here. Director Barry.
Yes. Don't we already have a reservoir a smaller reservoir to the west of this called Calkins Reservoir? And to me, if we don't rename it to Union, we're sort of creating some confusion with similar names in a similar area.
So yeah, that's a good point. And here's the other interesting thing is that when you pull up the Google map, you'll see what we're talking about is named Union Reservoir. just to the west is called Calkins Reservoir, but that is also kind of, I think, locally referred to as Jim Ham Pond. So there's that. Representative Benavides.
I was just going to say, again, the question that we're facing is to make changes, and Calkins Lake is the name, not Calkins Reservoir. That's a separate body. This is
Yes.
Calkins Lake. Both of these, though similar, have been on there since, I think, the early 1900s on the map. So those names, even though the same, is not the issue, and we haven't really gone through that. It's really about, do we want to replace Calkins Lake with Union Reservoir?
Yeah. Mr. Benitez, I saw a brief hand up. I wasn't sure if that was intentional.
Yeah, actually, Representative Benavides just took my point. So
Okay.
it's, I concur with what she stated.
Dr. Limerick, you still have a hand up. Is that?
I do. It came back up because I would like to say that I thought Representative Benavides did a very fine job of reframing, or not framing, or just reminding me that this was the issue. We have the name in place, and should a concern arise about that down the road, that would be a different consideration for what we have now. So I would like to say that that was a persuasive comment, and I would like to say you should call me Patty rather than Commissioner.
Okay. Not seeing another board member's hand up at this moment. Miss Armstrong.
I also want to say that Ms. Benavides said exactly what I was thinking, that the name is Calkins Lake and we'd like to keep it that way. She said it very well. And you know, I guess you can go down all these little alleys of, well, what is Union? Who are they? And what's their history? So, you know, thank you for listening to us. And we would hope that you consider keeping it as Calkins Lake. Thank you.
Okay, and then Ms. Shield, I'll take you one final time here, and then I've got
Okay, I've been accused, I'm a retired economist, and I've been accused of overthinking everything. But I think that we are willing as an organization to do further research to allay the concerns about how that land was acquired to begin with. I'm not, you know, we would be diligent in doing further research. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board members, Dr. Way, did I see you have a hand up earlier? Actually, I apologize. You got the mute button on there.
Yes, when I had raised my hand, it was to agree with Representative Benavides. And then after hearing Patty talk, I decided maybe I better think about this some more. Yeah. And at this point, what I think we may be best, well, the best thing perhaps to do is to take each case, you know, as it comes to us on a one-by-one basis until there is, in fact, an established criterion for dealing with the problem that she had raised, which is the problem of settler colonialism and the role that settlers had played in the displacement of indigenous people, which is a matter I take very seriously. But meanwhile, I think that the Representative Benavides made an excellent case, you know, and fully prepared to go with it.
Okay. Seeing no further hands raised, real quick, why don't we open this up to public comment. If you have public comment, please raise your hand. Mr. Royvo, good morning. I'm sorry, did somebody else say something?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's Director Garcia. Just quickly before you go to public comment, I just wanted to ask a general question and make sure I'm clear on the process leading us up to this decision today. The application indicates that there had been no response from the city of Longmont nor Weld County. Can someone just determine what that outreach included? And I'm interested in that primarily because I would assume that no response would mean indifference by these elected bodies. And I just want to be certain of that if we take a vote in moving this forward are not moving it forward. So I don't know who would like to respond to that.
Actually, I think we can start with Ms. Runyon to talk about some of that initial outreach to the city and the county. Ms. Runyon?
Okay, thank you. Actually, yes, we did contact both the city council and the county board of commissioners. The city council responded that they do support changing it to Union Reservoir, citing long-term local and published usage. Weld County responded that they would defer to the city government because it's within city property. So we did hear from both. You're right, typically our second follow-up is usually, if we don't hear from you by a certain date, we will presume you have no opinion. But in this case, the county did respond, but they just said, you need to reach out to the city, it's on their land. So you could argue they're neutral.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments there regarding thoughts, follow up on Director Garcia's question? Director Garcia, does that help you out? Okay. Let's real quick open this up to public comment. Mr. Roybo, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. I'm from Weld County. I hope that just because I'm just a regular person, I hope that still counts for something. Just to give somebody a reminder, I was concerned with the name Union, specifically what's going on today. And I want everybody to understand this has nothing to do with anybody on behalf of one or the other history, because I know we're only looking at changing this. But I did suggest to get away from the word union. And at the time, I was actually asked if I had any alternative names. And one thing that's going to make it easy is now we do have 2 Calkin locations. If we can change it now, because this has been brought up to the board, I'm going to propose we can change one or the other.
Great, thank you.
Because
go ahead.
Yeah, hold on. And so one of the recommendations that I have is like slake, which means to quench, because if you look at the history to do with irrigation, this was pretty parched land. And if we could do something to commemorate the idea, or maybe even sugar beet reservoir or something of that nature. But I do believe that this is an opportunity, if there's 2 names, that we can actually give some credence to the ancestors that were here. My family, I found out, were recruited to work the farms out here. And that was a polite name. And your family get them again. I have a lot of history here also, and I just don't want it to be erased so simultaneously. And again, I know that we're not talking about that, but I am offering a couple different names to change at least one of the lakes.
Okay, thank you. Any additional public comment, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we will close public comment. I want to just real quick see if there were any other kin of the Calkins family that have joined us. If you wouldn't mind identifying yourself by raising a hand or pulling yourself off mute. If you want to say a few words. Okay. All right, board members, tricky one here.
I'm sorry. I couldn't unmute myself. My name is Melissa Calkins.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good. Unfortunately, I'm a dialysis clinic for at the moment, so I missed part of the conversation, but I represent the Calkins Family Association along with Nanette and Judy. And so what they have said so far, with us keeping the Calkins Lake name, would be appreciated.
Okay. Thanks, Melissa. We appreciate you sending in that letter. I had one question regarding it that I don't know if you could help us out, but Mr. Calkins had passed in 1927, and then there was a comment, I think, in your letter that the name change from Calkins Lake to Union Reservoir appears to have taken place around 1903. We've got some documentation that said 1950, and I wasn't sure if you could sort of, if there was any, if you understood if the name was already being changed while he was, Mr. Calkins was still alive.
That was my question. Would he have known about that and why the change was made while he was still living? I don't know. That's something we should look into. as Judy mentioned earlier.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, with that, board members. Representative Benavides.
I make a motion that we reject this proposal and leave the Calkins name as it is.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second? Dr. Wade, that's your second, just to confirm? You're on mute. I just want to make sure I got that right.
Sorry about that. Yeah, yes. I second the motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion, board members? Please, and AG Beatty, good morning. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you? Just a quick reminder that I think the motions need to be recommend rejecting to the governor as opposed to actually outright rejecting or accepting.
Thanks.
I would adopt whatever language Ms. Beatty feels is appropriate for the motion.
Okay, we are recommending rejection of the name to the governor as the motion. Dr. Way, you're good with that. Board members, any further discussion? If you want to raise your hand. Seeing none, I can call the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will construct that recommendation and send it to the governor. Great, thank you. I appreciate everybody in the conversation and the Calkins family for taking the time to join us today. All right, on to agenda item 19. Our 2022 board meetings. Moving forward, we had discussed moving to the evenings, still the third Thursday of each month, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., trying to keep them a little bit shorter given the evening hour there. Was there any further discussion or comment? We're good with that to the degree that we're able to make our meetings. Representative Benavides?
Yes, I guess I looked at their committee hearings. I don't have a committee late on Thursdays, but I know Representative Exum has education on Thursdays and Representative Perry has energy. So I was just hoping they could weigh in on setting those out through May on those dates, because I think it's somewhat problematic all the way to May.
Representative Exum?
Yeah, I would agree. It's just an unknown when we get out of committee. Typically, if we have 2 or 3 bills to look at, it's not an issue. But lately, education has been getting a lot of interest, and we've been going past 6 on a regular basis.
Okay, Representative Will?
Yeah, I would agree. Representative Exum said, I mean, the early part of the session is probably not an issue. When we get later on in the session, 6 o'clock is going to be tough to make out of Energy Committee.
Okay, do we want to try and keep like the first couple, or I don't know, Representative Benavides, if you've got the calendar there, or if there's a evening that we might be able to nail down?
Those dates, the committees are set. I don't know that anybody has one on Monday. I might, but again, it doesn't usually go on at the beginning. I would say that we maybe try this at least January and February, and then maybe revisit it in February and see where we are then, if that's agreeable to the other 2 representatives.
I agree. I think initially, we'll be fine.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Representative Exum. Okay, we will do that unless there's any other board members have any other comments about that meeting time. We are set. Okay, very good. We will keep that out. We will have Johnny, if she hasn't yet, will change our calendar invites. And moving forward, we should be the third Thursday of the month for the time being. That means our next meeting, and actually, yes, Johnny actually is on top of this and changed this on our calendar invites. I knew that. Is January 20th at 6 p.m. We'll try that. Finally, agenda item 20 here. Is there any general public comment? Please signify by raising your hand on Zoom. Tim, is this Tim Swales?
Hey, yeah, that's me.
Good morning. How are
Hey,
you?
good morning. Yeah, pretty good. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for allowing me to give a public comment. I appreciate it. This meeting was super interesting. Lots of good conversation. I just had like a few comments. One was that the naming from the S names from the task force, where it's like a 5-mile radius, that seems pretty generic and algorithmic. And I think lots of communities would really jump at the chance of, giving a more meaningful name. I also want to say congrats on the Mestahe Mountain thing. I was at the US BGN board meeting and they had like tons of good things to say about the board, just in terms of the, how good the research was and the outreach and like the discussion of making it happen. And they also said in terms of pronunciation, it's unfamiliar, but perfectly pronounceable. And I agree with that sentiment. Also wanted to say, yeah, I still support the renaming of Mount Evans to Mount Blue Sky. And I think that Calkins conversation really brought up some great points about like, settler colonialism and history. And I think those will really come into play during the conversation about Mount Evans. And then, yeah, just happy holidays to everyone and looking forward to 2022. Thanks a lot for the time.
Mr. Swales, thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Mr. Roybo, good morning again, please.
Good morning. Yeah, I apologize. I have to say that a couple times. I said this before, so hang with me because it really truly is appreciated. You think about this board and it sounds so benign, but to see how it gets into different areas, I just want to say, I can't say this enough how appreciative I am of this group. And I really appreciate that you opened it up to discussion.
Great.
Muchas gracias. This is todo es muy importante con la gente. And then when we talk about the history, that we're really delving into something that's really deep within this community. I'm talking about Colorado, and I think that this is very important. It's very educational. And I just want to say I'm honored to be a part of this. And thanks for allowing me this participation.
We appreciate you taking the time to join us and participate in these meetings. Thank you so much. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we are on our final agenda item, which is adjournment. I just want to check in with the board. Are there any final thoughts or comments before we do adjourn?
Oh, nope.
Dr. Way.
I just want to take this opportunity to wish you all happy holidays.
You too.
Happy holidays to everybody. You too, Dr. Way. Thank you. Dr. Limerick.
I just suddenly wondered if there is any thought about when we might meet in person. And then I thought,
oh,
why don't I not ask that? Because how could you possibly know all these calculations and estimations? But and I know for folks on the Western Slope, this is really so, and really for people from Boulder, it might be preferable. But I just wondered if there has ever been a concept of us actually maybe once a year or something. But how could you know that? Because Dr. Fauci won't tell you whether you can do that or not. I don't think anybody's going to tell you about that. So it just flickers into my mind from time to time, and I thought I would just ask that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Dr. Limerick. Right now, we're operating off of the governor's recommendations. All of our boards and commissions, so you think Parks and Wildlife, the CWCB, they are now moved to a remote platform like Zoom, like we are doing here. We think that this will last at least through the end of January, and that will probably be reconsidered at that moment. We'll see what this COVID pandemic does. I do think that at some point it would be nice to sit around the table with all of you, and so we can certainly kind of think about what that might look like, and when appropriate time comes. I'm going to assume that it's going to be, now that we're moving this legislative session, the 6 p.m. kind of nights, and the weather, that this might be something we would look into probably in the summer months later on. So why don't we take it up once we get towards the end of the legislative session.
Right, but you forgot to call me Patty, so that didn't work.
Oh, I thought you were asking Representative Benavides to call you Patty.
That was my priority. Heaven knows that was my priority, but I'm not going to stop there. No.
Thank you, Patty. Commissioner Chimino, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to say something similar to Patty, and that is that I mean, we'll respect the governor's guidance, I guess, and wait till summer. But what I was going to suggest is maybe, since we'll go to Thursday evenings, you know, probably everyone prefers Zoom. We all live in separate areas, but if well, you know how it is as a commissioner, Tim, to January, February, March, April, there's a lot of weeks where I'm in Denver testifying on whatnot, and I would probably, maybe 4 or 5 of us could get in a room in Denver, and everyone else is on Zoom. That might be nice. I don't know if that can be done or not, but that'd be my request, if we could just make that an opportunity earlier. But if we wait till summer, I'm fine with that too.
You know, we have operated remote meetings with, I don't know that we've got the personnel right now, but we can certainly take a look at that. We've got some of those owls here at 1313, so that might be an opportunity to bring some folks around the table then. And yeah, have a part remote, part in-person type of meeting. Okay, that's a good comment there. We can look for those opportunities, because you're right. Board members, any other comments? With that, happy and safe holidays to you all and to the public. Appreciate everybody taking the time to join us and for your work. And it's so good to see you, and we stand adjourned. Thank you.